Whoa, I don't know why it does that. But anyway, hallelujah. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of the world. This is Pastor Dowell and
Ed Bridwell.
This is Brother Ed. Hallelujah. Me and y'all see him on YouTube in the ministry. He's the one that's up the that helps reading, that does the reading for the ministry at time, and he also plays bass. But we're here to talk to you, the men, today about men's health. And the reason why we're talking about men's health today is because it's on a serious decline. We have an epidemic in our society today, and men are coming down with prostrate problems. I mean, big time prostrate problems and low testosterone. Now, there may be times in this particular segment right here that we may be a little bit more forthright and upcoming than people are used to. So I suggest that if you're going to show this to people and stuff, as long as they have a mature audience, that they can view this and it won't hurt their little sensitive ears here, then you let them know before time what they're getting ready to get themselves into. Now, Brother Ed, we just got finished speaking with your wife, and she did a good job explaining to the people the importance of herbs and trying to take care of yourself naturally. We're going to talk about men today. We're going to talk about men. There are certain things that take place at different times in men's life, from your 20s to your 30s to your 40s and stuff. And there are ways that we should be taking care of ourselves. As a matter of fact, we have to be a little bit more sober in taking care of ourselves as we get into our 40s on up, because testosterone levels are declining. Things are starting to take place, and changes are taking place in our lives. And if we don't, if we're not careful about doing certain things and trying to, not put knowledge in ourselves to take care of ourselves, we can't depend upon the system to do it for us.
Right.
As a matter of fact, if we put our trust in their hands, pretty soon, the only thing I ever found out that doctors can do is take out stuff. They never put nothing back in, or they never give you anything to try to really heal it.
Right.
So we have to do this within ourselves. Now, what is one of the reasons why there's so much heart disease? We'll hit that area first in men around the late 30s, their 40s, and their 50s.
Well, of course, the obvious things you have, if you take smoking out of the equation, that's one of the biggies right there. But not all people smoke. But if you do smoke, that really increases the possibility of heart disease and the stress on the heart and the arteries. But even for people who don't smoke, in today's times with the environment and the toxicity of the air we breathe, or your working environment, the air quality is not near as good as it used to be years ago. That's another factor that factors into it. But the main thing, the main staple, though, a lot of times is going to be the diet. The diet that we eat, which is high in cholesterol, high in saturated fats that are not natural. A lot of these synthetic, man-made type fats that the body cannot process nor digest and expel. And those fats and the cholesterol will build up into the artery walls, build a plaque, and it restricts the blood vessels on the arteries as far as blood flow. And when it does, then it puts more restraint on the heart to try to pump the blood. And of course, that makes the heart muscle itself work overtime to try to pump the blood, and then it causes ruptures throughout the arteries and the blood vessels. And then of course you had people talk about having aneurysms or ruptures, and it causes almost instantaneous death. And then also too, lack of exercise, and not just moving around, but any kind of aerobic type exercise.
Now, when you mean you're talking about aerobic exercise, or are you talking about just going out for a leisurely stroll, or are you talking about exercise that's actually going to do something for the body?
No, do something for the body. I mean, you need to have some sort of regular exercise. I mean, a lot of times people are today's society, we're more geared towards sitting at a computer desk in front of a keyboard, just sitting there 8 hours a day, then going home and just sitting at night. So there's really not any movement at all. If a person has a job where they're up moving around, doing things, that's better, but it's still not really good enough. A person needs to have the aerobic exercise to where, and what I mean by that is not aerobics like you would think about, where you have the people wearing the nice little outfits doing the little things on the, like you see on some of these exercise shows. That's fine, but it can be any kind of exercise. An aerobic exercise basically is what that means, is that you get your heart rate up to a certain level, not maxed out, but it has to be above a resting rate, and you need to continue where it is that heart rate. It maintains that particular rate to where it'll be for like at least 20 to 30 minutes uninterrupted for a period of time. That way your body can get up to and your heart gets exercise. Because if you're sedentary and you're sitting, then your heart's going to be sitting, because your heart rate is going to depend on the amount of activity you're doing. Whereas like when a person sleeps, their heart rate will drop. When they get up and start moving or running, if you run, your heart rate is going to increase. So anytime your activities increase, then your heart rate increases. And the problem is when your physical ability, when you don't exercise, then your heart is used to running at a slower speed. And then if you gain a lot of weight, you already have some heart disease going on, and if you do have to work your heart, and your heart has to start pumping blood, if you start to do some sort of exercise, then it puts such a strain on it, then that can cause a heart attack, because you have the physical demands, the needs that the body needs for to supply the oxygen throughout the blood to different muscles and different parts of the brain all at one time. And if the heart cannot get the blood that it needs to those areas, or it's stressed out because of weakness of the valves or the different chambers and muscles of the heart, if there's been damage done to it, then it's going to fail.
I can add something to that also. If you're not drinking enough water, then chances are your blood is not flowing the way that it should. Because, we live in a society where water is just not a staple in people's diet today. Soda pops, Cokes, coffee, teas, everything but water. Alcohol. So water will do good to help make the blood flow. Is that right?
Yes, and also too, if a person becomes dehydrated, it also puts a strain on the heart. Because it doesn't have the moisture getting into the system. It actually, all the systems in the body will suffer due to lack of water. So it's best a person stay hydrated.
So as we age, for instance, men, their testosterone levels or their T levels is running very, very high when they're in their 20s.
Yes.
And it starts declining at a certain age.
Right.
And do you know what age it probably...
It varies on the person, but some it'll start in their late 20s, some will be maybe up to the mid-30s. Even some as late as the late 30s, depending on their genetics. A lot of it ties into the genetic tree that you have, where you come from.
Right.
And also the condition that your body's in, how well your body processes and develops things. As far as that goes. Another thing too that declines, not just in the testosterone area, but as you get into your late 30s, early 40s, and go on from there, everybody, especially men though, your body will lose muscle mass, the actual lean muscle mass. Even if you exercise and take supplements, you will still lose a certain percentage of muscle mass each year as you go on. And when people don't exercise, then it even becomes more noticeable, especially if you go to try to do something where you've not been doing it for a while. Then you really have to strain. It puts more strain on the muscles, and it can also cause to injuries.
So actually, as we age, we actually need to become not less active, but maybe a little bit more active, or be trying to at least try to keep a consistent level of activity.
Yeah, consistent.
When we were in our youth. Is that right?
Yeah, consistency would be the best.
Now, if you look at it, like I said before, there's an epidemic in our society of men very young ages. I mean, the last report I had, got a report on the phone not too long ago. Man, 30 years old, dying of prostate cancer. You know what I mean, and different things. The prostate, now women don't have a problem with this. Right. Men are the one who have a problem with this. Now the prostate, it's part of the male anatomy that must be in continual use. It's there, and it has particular use. But it needs to be emptied, and because if it's not emptied, if it's sitting there and stuff, this also affects the male's health. Is that right?
Yeah. The prostate actually has a couple different things that can affect it. Lack of use is one thing. Of course, with the age, a seminar that my wife and I attended a few years back in Florida, a health seminar. There's a doctor there. He's a medical doctor as well as an herbalist, who he specializes in men's health, and he said that every man as he ages, will develop a certain amount of prostate problems. The older that you get, it's inevitable there will be a certain amount of problems. But by being healthy, and concentrating in that area, then your amount of the problem will be lessened, as opposed to not doing anything at all. And certain things that make a difference in that, of course, he said would be like regular sexual activity. Of course, that will flush out the prostate.
Right.
Because as it builds up toxins. He said like the semen that comes out will have like little clumps or little gritty parts to it, and that's where there's blockages and things forming in the prostate itself. And as that gets released, then that helps to flush it out. But another thing too that we find that causes a lot of the cancer problems in the prostate is not so much always just the problem with the prostate, but it can also be to where the people are not, as you say, we're not hydrating enough.
Right.
Because the prostate is so close to other organs, and the toxins in the body, the diet, and not drinking enough water where you're urinating enough makes a big difference. Because if you don't drink enough water and get enough fluids in you, then you don't drink enough.
Right.
And you're not urinating enough to help get rid of toxins, and those toxins want to lay around the bladder area. And also too the colon. If you're not going to the bathroom and where you having bowel movements, then the colon can have those toxins built up there, and that is laying right there also. And between the toxicity of the stuff coming through the bladder and that area of the urethra coming through the prostate area, any kind of seepage that you can have, and with the colon, you can have what they call leaky gut syndrome, where if the colon is not in good health, the tissue is not good, you'll have seepage of the toxins, which will come and go. Of course, gravity allows it to go right down to those areas. Then you'll have cancer that will bleed over from those areas into the different organs, and the prostate being one of them. So a person has to really keep in mind that you need to try to do preventive maintenance on that to try to keep from having that problem develop.
So what's some of the natural herbs that men can take? Now, before we get to the natural herbs, we do know, and I'm going to try to help do a little bit more clarifying here what Brother Ed has just said, and everything we've went over. When we're in our 20s and 30s as men, our testosterone levels are high, everything is functioning at a high level, and it doesn't seem like anything is going wrong.
Right.
When we get to our late 30s and early 40s, all of a sudden there's a change that takes place. All of a sudden, because our T levels have dropped, there are certain things that takes place when your T levels is dropped. For instance, your mindset begins to change. You're just not as interested in sexual activity as you were when you were younger, when your T levels was running high. And this is where the exercise comes into play, because what it does, it helps keep your levels up.
Right.
Now, you're not going to totally prevent the change of life from happening.
Right.
That's just all there is to it. But it's very important, from what I can ascertain from what you're saying, is that men need to be sexually active with their wife in their mid ages.
Right.
Because what happens is that a lot of times men are not emptying the prostate like they should, and they end up developing prostate cancer. Is that
right?
What I'm getting from? Okay, good. I also noticed that, around here in this little town that we live in, another thing is a big, major problem of men. And the reason why they're not sexually active with their wives, and the reason why they lose a lot of interest is because their diet, like you had mentioned before, is very, very bad. Right. They begin to develop a lot of fat around the midsection. And earlier you was talking about the organs. Right. So what does all this excess weight around the midsection, because that's what men carry it at. Right. What does all this excess weight around the midsection do to the male body?
Well, there's different things. First off, you have the extra weight that your body has to pack around, for one thing. Plus two, the extra fat you have in there, the cells will store toxins that your body has to try to fight against. And those fat cells are hard to get rid of. They're easy to gain, but it's hard to get rid of. Especially as men, when you're young, it's hard to, a lot of times, your metabolism is high, and you can get by eating a lot of things that are not healthy, and you won't accumulate the excess fat. As your body burns it off and it expels it pretty quickly. But as you age, as your metabolism slows down, then those calories, like the junk calories, empty calories, that kind of stuff that's not nutritious, will turn to fat, especially if your exercise is dropped off. Then, of course, as being men, it usually gains around the midsection. But all those toxins, though, right there are in that area, and of course, with gravity, all your organs and stuff is going to dwell right down that middle area. And of course, as it goes down, then it gets right down to the reproductive parts of the body.
Right.
And that's just it's more or less like a common sense type thing right there.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why, and mostly men, the reason why we're talking about this particular subject right here is because we're not saying that herbs is the be all and end all. You have responsibility that you need to take for yourself, but because we live in a nutritionally deficient society, our foods are genetically modified. Everything that was good in the foods that could provide service and function to our bodies is no longer there.
That's true.
It's no longer there anymore. And so we have to supplement. We have to do things to help our bodies function in the way that it should, or at least to help the way that it should. And you've heard Brother Ed constantly mention the word toxic, because we live in a toxic environment. The air we breathe is toxic. The soil is toxic. Everything that we have in the store is toxic. You understand? I mean, everything that we have going on with us is toxic. So we're going to take responsibility. We're going to do things for our own selves, and we're going to nourish this knowledge within ourselves. And as we learn, then we can pass this knowledge on to you, and hopefully to help you out also. Now, there are certain herbs that you can take. And mind you, we're not prescribing nothing to anybody. It's up to you whether you want to do it or not. This is just what we do. And I'm going to tell you what we do. We use an herb called saw palmetto for prostate health. And it's not the same type of saw palmetto that you would have if you go to the vitamin shop or GNC or some of these other corporate drugs or herbal stores. Mm-hmm. Ours, we make it ourselves. Right. And it's at a very, very high level and a very, very high potency. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else? And what does saw palmetto do? And is there any other drugs? Drugs, oh Lord. Any other health products?
Saw palmetto is the #1 recommended effective herb.
I mean, is this something that should be taken daily?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, especially as you're aging. This is very important. Saw palmetto, even in higher concentrations, people I know personally who have had elevated PSA test, which a PSA test is a test. It's a blood test where they can do a level PSA that it can determine the risk factors or the risk level of the likelihood of having cancer cells for the prostate. And people, like if you have a 1 or 2, that's a low level. But if you have somewhere up in the 6, 7, 8 readings, that's a high level. And that means that you're likely to have a problem with the prostate. And even if you don't have any other symptoms, that's just a likely level. But people I know personally who have had those tests done and have had higher levels, even with no other known symptoms, have taken a saw palmetto liquid tincture. Right. And have taken it on a more than a maintenance dosage, but have taken it on a little more of an increased dosage, and in a short amount of time have taken that and then had their blood work rechecked. Right. And it dropped it significantly down in a safe level.
Oh, okay. Now, it is my understanding that the prostate is a muscle. Yes. Right? And there's a way that you can exercise this muscle.
Yeah, PC exercise. Yeah.
All right, PC exercises, I guess those are commonly called Kegels?
Yeah.
Is that right, Kegels? Yeah. The squeezing, you have to squeeze and stuff, and you have to become active in doing this because it's not something that people think about. Right. And matter of fact, men out there are not even told it whatsoever at all. Right. They're not given this kind of instruction. So the prostate is a muscle, and it's very important that you start taking positive action today, men, especially if you're like Brother Ed and I. Brother Ed is a little bit older than I am. I'm in my mid-40s, and you're 48 years old. And so, believe you me, both of us can tell the change of life.
Oh, amen.
Hallelujah. And so, since we could tell the change of life, I personally try to do everything I can to try to make sure that I'm functioning the way that I did when I was younger. So, cleaning out the prostate, by having normal sexual activity, and also taking supplemental, and probably doing Kegels would help, or to exercise the prostate. There's also a natural herb out there called maca. Called maca. It's what happened is that maca was what we should have had in our country, but the Europeans decided to bring the potato over instead of the maca, which would have helped us. They bought the potato to give us a bunch of starches and everything, but the maca is it helps out in many other areas. And then there's also another herb, a natural herb out there called blue steel. Blue steel. Do you know of any others?
Yeah, there are some other combinations of herbs. There's one by the Nature's Sunshine company it's a combination of herbs. They'll have saw palmetto. They'll have different types of ginseng in them. Different types of other, like sometimes it'll be like sassafras, like wild yam. There's like a horny goat weed, they call it. There's different herbs. Sometimes they will have it'll be a combination, a certain formula that they come up with that will help with the anything that will help with the male reproduction organs or men's vitality, with their physical performance, just as far as their health in general. Anything like that will actually has a positive benefit for the prostate. And also, too, you mentioned about it being a muscle. It's actually a gland with muscle. A gland with muscle. Yeah, because the actual stuff goes through the gland part, but then you do those exercises, the muscle part right there will help to squeeze and to manipulate that. Strengthen it, too, as far as that goes. But yeah, the things like the what they call the Nature's Sunshine, the X Action for men, that helps with the both the vitality of the men as far as their physical ability, giving certain nutrients to them. It also helps with the prostate. There's also a DHA that has another combination of some of those herbs that does the same thing. And a lot of the things that are herbal that will help with the testosterone levels, all that stuff is a positive benefit for the saw palmetto.
So,
for the prostate.
Right.
Saw palmetto is the main ingredient that most of them use, though.
So the reason why we're bringing this information to you, because we're telling you what we do, not what anybody else does. We're not prescribing you to do anything. We're telling you what we recommend and what we do around here. And the reason why we're, continually keep talking about the natural herbs again is because I like to reiterate, and I can't say it enough. Our environment is so toxic, and the soil is so depleted that we have to supplement. We have to do things, and we have to nurse this knowledge within ourselves, because these big corporations and all these people that plant these foods and stuff, the only thing they want to do is make a profit and fill your belly and fill your gut. They're not interested in your health. And so we just do not live in the same type of environment that people lived in a couple of hundreds of years ago. Matter of fact, we might as well even say 80 or 90 years ago. I mean, because then at least if you got a wheat germ and stuff, at least when you made bread, you got all the nutritional value that you could get out of it. Whereas today, the bread that you eat, all it's doing is filling your gut. And that's the reason why today the majority of the people are perishing, is because there is nothing good in the food.
Yeah, I believe there used 2 years ago the soil had, if I remember correctly, it was 70 some odd different minerals, nutrients in the soil.
70.
Yeah, and I think now it's down to around 5.
Huh?
Yeah, it's down to about 5, where it's been depleted. So much of the different chemicals have been in it, and the farmers just continually just reusing the soil over and over and over and over again, with a lot of times not doing any crop rotations. The crops would take the stuff out. They're not letting the soil rest. They're not putting in the proper things they need for the soil, and then plus all the toxic stuff that falls down, by way of the air and the rain. It's just a whole combination of things.
So you see, ladies and gentlemen, brothers out there, we could go on all night long talking about this subject, and it's inexhaustible, and that's just a fact. So we decided to come here tonight and just try our best to provide a little bit of information which at least give you a starting point. Because like we said before, there's nothing good that's going on in our society that's going to inform the people today of what's taking place. Like I said before, we'll have others here. We'll talk about hunting. We'll talk about skinning, processing. We'll talk about a whole bunch of things. We'll talk about clothing. We'll talk about just anything that we can do in the time that we're living in now to better help prepare the minds of the people for what's getting ready to hit us. I mean, we are getting ready for a serious train wreck here in America. And so we have to prepare ourselves, and we can't depend on the system any longer. But hey, we appreciate each and every last one of you for watching this particular video. And if it's helped you in any kind of way, I mean, just send a couple of messages and let us know. Oh yeah, one more. We got one more here to deal with. Many people don't know, or they don't have any knowledge, that your body works and it functions better when the pH level is in a certain range. All right, and in order for us to understand, at least try to get a little bit of understanding as best as we can about this pH level and how to measure this pH level, Brother Ed, give us some information on it.
All right, your pH is the body's balance as far as the content of the cells being acidic or being alkaline. Just as water or in a swimming pool, there has to be a certain pH factor for the water to be proper, be safe environment for you to be in. Just like certain crops have to have a certain pH level to be to where the crops will actually grow properly and produce the proper fruit. And not all crops have the same pH, but there has to be pH samples done so they'll know what to put into the soil to add to it to bring it up or lower it. And your body's the same way. Your body is a living organism. It's comprised of cells, and your body works best on a neutral pH, which is around 6.5 to 7.0. That's around the middle range of pH.
And that's the healthy range.
That's the healthy range. And if a person has got cancer, they are going to have a very acidic pH, which would be a low number. And
give me an example of a low number.
It could be anywhere from, say, 2, 3, 4.
That's because 5. The body's acidic.
The body's acidic.
It's not working the way that it should.
Exactly. And all sicknesses and illnesses are going to be in bodies that are acidic for the most part. And cancer cells will not grow in an alkaline environment. They will only grow in a acidic environment. When they do testing in laboratories of cancer cells, they put them in a petri dish with a solution that is acidic. The cells will thrive and multiply and grow. If it's put in an alkaline environment, then it kills it. It cannot multiply and grow. So what we have to do is try to monitor our bodies to make sure that we stay as close to being balanced as far as our pH as we can. And we do that by the kinds of foods we put in our body. That's the main way of governing it. And you can check your pH. There's different ways. You can get these little test strips, pH test strips, that you can either use your saliva, but the most accurate way is like in the morning when you first get up before you've eaten or drank anything, is that you actually use your urine. You go to the bathroom and you just get a little of your pee on the strip, and you can monitor the color. It'll be a little chart that shows you just match the color up, and it gives that color corresponds with a certain number, and that would tell you what your pH is. And your pH, as far as the foods you put in your body, all meats are acidic.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it flies, if it crawls, if it swims, if it runs, walks. It doesn't matter. If it had a mama, it's acidic.
Okay.
Any animal.
All right.
And biblically, clean or unclean, it doesn't matter as far as the acidity. They're all acidic.
Right.
And you have to watch out for people who are high meat eaters that don't eat a balance of vegetables or certain grains.
They don't have any greens in their diet.
Exactly. They're
live greens,
exactly.
right?
Their diet is going to be comprised mostly of acidic foods. And if your diet is comprised mostly of acidic foods, then naturally your body is going to have a higher acidic reading. So your object is just to have a balanced meal where the body is getting a balance of certain meats. You do need to have a certain amount of meat for the protein factor.
Right.
But then you also need to have a certain balance of vegetables and fruits that are alkaline by nature to offset the acidity of the meat. And what you have to do, there are charts available that will show, or books also too, that deal with this pH factor. You can probably go online and find it, and it will tell a list of the meats, what they are, and of course they're all acidic, but it will tell you which ones are beneficial for you, But then also too, it'll list all the vegetables and all the fruits and all the grains, and it will tell if they're acidic or if they're alkaline. And then common sense is to balance your meals out to where you can do that. And the thing of it is that not all vegetables, just because something's a green vegetable, does not mean that it's going to be alkaline.
Alkaline, right.
Some vegetables, which are healthy for you, are
Right.
acidic. But at the same time, you don't need to assume that just because it's green and it's a healthy thing, that it's going to be alkaline.
So what happens in the process when you get people, I mean, for instance, we live in the South. And you know, people in the South, they'll cook the living daylights out of a green bean. I mean, they'll cook that thing to death, brother. So what in the world are we doing? I mean, it seems to me that the green bean would be better close to its natural state as possible, as opposed to cooking the living daylights out of it.
The one of the biggest downfalls that the American diet has compared to other countries is the American diet is high in cooked vegetables, and a lot of times what they cook them in is going to be fatty oils,
lard,
unclean
lard,
saturated type fats that are not natural,
which clogs the arteries.
Yes, where they deep fry them, stuff like that, and that kind of stuff just kills all of the a lot of the fiber content, a lot of the enzymes that are in the foods. It just totally kills all the nutritional value out of it. And it's like microwaves. People will take something and heat it up in the microwave. Well, that just alters the whole genetic makeup of the food that you put in there. It kills any kind of nutritional value. But if you look at some of the other countries, they don't use as many cooked vegetables. They use more raw.
Right.
And the raw vegetables and fruits are the best way to go. Because you're not losing any of the enzymes or any of the nutrients through the cooking process. You're getting the natural fibers in their natural state. Your body knows how to deal with that better. Like a lot of people eat like they call a Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet's been proven over and over and over again to where even though they may consume some like wine, they may consume some certain creams, certain cheeses, they actually lose weight and are healthier, both heart-wise, cholesterol-wise. When they have the test done, they check very good because they're eating mostly raw vegetables, raw fruits. They eat very little of this processed meat. It's more of a natural meat that's cooked just to make it, where it's lean. It's not high fatty type meats. But that's a big thing to it right there, is just having a balanced meal. But the pH though is a person needs to try to have a balanced pH, and you just have to kind of balance your foods with what you eat. You cut out a lot of the meat. If it's all you're eating, is you need to take away some of that meat and add more alkaline vegetables and fruits to it.
So the people worldwide, the majority of them in a whole lot better condition than Americans. I mean, simply because their diet is totally different than ours. As a matter of fact, they take care of themselves a little bit better than we do. I tell you what, I hope that some way, somehow, we've been able to help some way, somehow. So I thank you, Brother Ed, for coming and talking to the YouTube audience. I'm sure the YouTube audience appreciate it. We'll get more and more in depth in the talks like this as we go on and stuff, but chime in on this and let us know what you think. So we hope you have a good night. Hallelujah. Goodbye.